It's time to ask the handicapper. Welcome to our show, everyone. This is At the Races, Sky Channel 415, Virgin Media 535, and all the W's at theraces.com. If you could pick any handicapper in the world and you wanted to ask them a big question, you obviously would go to the chief of handicapping in the world, and that is what we've done. We've got Phil Smith, the BHA's chief handicapper, with me. Good morning to you, Chief. And the first question I've got to just absolutely throw at you right now. Everyone's saying vintage season, great chasers around, but which horse has put up the best chasing performance on figures this season?
Okay, good to see you again, Matt. The best performance we believe so far was actually put up by Sprinter Sacre.
Sprinter Sacre?
Yeah, we've got him performing to 173. Now, obviously, that's still massively lower than his best performance, his best rating from a couple of years ago. So he's still got a hell of a long way to get back to it. So it'll be interesting to see if he can replicate it or improve on that next time. I think with the 3-milers, we've got a whole load of potential top-class horses. We've got a mass of horses in the sort of low 170s who could become anything. The horse that's sort of stimulated me most, if you like, is Q-Card. I mean, who couldn't be impressed with what he did? And what we've done with him is put him back to his previous best. So he was 172, sort of 18 months to 2 years ago, when he was obviously performing well. He went through, under a cloud for a spell and dropped his rating, and I've put him back to 172, which is his best. I suspect that he's possibly better than that now, but we'll find out more in the King George. I didn't want to go overboard on him for that race because clearly the opposition at Haydock, the other four, all underperformed by varying degrees. And so therefore to sort of suddenly say Q-Card is a better horse than he's ever been, I thought was a little bit premature. But I suspect if he can carry on that way, he's the sky's the limit with him.
Sprinter Sacre, obviously, he gave the look of a horse who was back, but is it not possible that you've got rather excited about this defeat of Somersby? I mean, didn't Special Tiara beat Somersby 15 lengths at Sandown on its previous run? Somersby's now an 11-year-old. I suspect Somersby's not anywhere near able to run up to his rating of 164 at the moment, and therefore Sprinter Sacre's rating could be very much elevated from what it should be.
Well, we didn't have Somersby running to his rating of 164 in that race. We had him running below that.
Much below.
A reasonable amount below. But if you just look at what Somersby was doing last year, he was getting very, very close to the horse that we had as our top 2-mile chaser last year, Dodging Bullets.
We all know Dodging Bullets is no... Well, he's in the great realms of things. He's not a great champion chaser. He's
a good champion chaser, and we've got
average.
him on low 170s. Sprinter Sacre, we know, has been better than that. Somersby is a great sort of marker horse in terms of he's incredibly consistent. He's got his last 6 performances have all been 155 to 164, somewhere in that little zone there. He's a good yardstick.
But he could be running in pensioners' chases now.
And that's what we'll find out. I mean, that's the great thing about the ratings at the moment, or these are performance figures as opposed to ratings. They're very much, carry a government health warning. They're where we are at the moment. We're, 2 months into the main body of the season. We've got 4 or 5 months to go. I suspect they'll change massively. They're just where we think we are at this point in time. So they're really very much embryonic.
Let's go to a race fresh in everyone's mind, the Hennessy. Of course, Smad Place looked absolutely awesome. Jump for fun, looked brilliant, but just how strong was the field with no Conagry? Could we question this form? Was it truly a great Hennessy? Although we like to get carried away, have we got carried away?
Well, I don't think we've got carried away. At least I haven't got carried away. I've put Smad Place up £13. He's won by 12 lengths. He won fairly comfortably. I took a little bit of allowance into the ground. I wasn't using the full pound of length that I perhaps would have done on better ground. But I still put him up 13 from 155 to 168. That puts him equal with Road to Riches on last year's form. Now, Road to Riches was incredibly consistent last year, but he was still only 3rd in the Gold Cup. So it makes him a contender, it makes Smad Place a contender. if the Gold Cup is the same quality as it was last year and puts him in contention for a place, I suspect he'll have to do better than that this year to get a place in the Gold Cup, because I think there's a whole host of horses who have the potential to be in the high 170s, as opposed to last year. We had Conagry on 172 last year, which for a novice was fantastic, but it's still generally low by Gold Cup standards.
You deal in facts and figures, Phil, but people like your opinion as well, and you are allowed to have opinions. Shockster on Twitter says Smad Place ran very well. He's been raised to 168. Do you see him, though, beating Conagry, getting £4? Do you, in your heart of hearts, do you really think that if you had a handicap tomorrow to run a race, Conagry wouldn't manage to give £4 to Smad Place?
The honest answer is, I hope, I don't know.
Yeah, we all don't know, Phil, but we're asking your opinion.
My opinion is
that is what questions
my opinion
are.
is they'd run a dead heat, because he's getting £4. We have
How often do horses run dead heats in National Hunt racing, Phil?
Rarely, but
what's your opinion?
But in
you
this
don't
case,
actually feel they'd run.
But in this case, it would be a dead heat.
Okay, I'll put the question differently. You are allowed a retirement fund if you get the result of this race correct. Conagry is in a race with Smad Place. Conagry is £4. Who would you like to have your retirement fund resting on?
I think it would be a dead heat. I'd be looking for the dead heat.
So you don't want a retirement fund?
I don't need a retirement fund, Matt.
Well, that's open to debate. I'm not sure if you checked the BHA pensions recently.
But to go back to Smad Place, right? 168. It makes him interesting, but of course we're talking about a totally different test in the Gold Cup than the one he had at Newbury the other day. First of all, he was up front. For most of the second circuit, he was pretty much unchallenged for most of the second circuit. Obviously, he had Fingal Bay with him for the first, but for the second, he was unchallenged. That will not happen in the Gold Cup. You can be sure that it'll be a hell of a job for Smad Place to get to the front. Secondly, it's a completely different track. And who's to say that that's not the best we've seen of Smad Place? I'd like to hope that now the horse has got his confidence, now they know how to ride him from the front. I'd like to think that there's some progression in him. It would be no surprise to me to see him in the low 170s come the end of the year. I worry, from the point of view of having a UK Gold Cup horse, that won't be enough.
And if we rewound this a few moments ago, you were saying that Smad Place, to get into the frame for the Gold Cup, still has a bit of work to do. Now, officially, of course, it's £4, but actually, although you wouldn't answer the question, that makes me feel that you do not feel at the moment that Smad Place could beat Conagry getting £4.
Well, I think what I would say is that I'd be surprised at the moment, assuming the same Conagry turned up as we had in the Gold Cup last year, I'd be surprised at level weights at Cheltenham if Smad Place could beat Conagry. I'm sort of not.
You'd be surprised at £4.
I've not answered the question quite that you wanted me to answer.
But you'd be surprised. But you have to stick with your figure. You would be surprised.
But I do believe that at Cheltenham, if he turns up in the same way as last year, I would think Conagry would beat Smad Place. And the ratings at the moment tell you that. Conagry is 172, his rating. I had him running to 170 on his sort of Tootle round at Sandown the other week, and Smad Place is 168. So on those ratings, we would expect Conagry to win. But again, I don't believe that 172 will win next year's Gold Cup. I'm sure there are other horses who are going to progress and progress beyond that.
Compared to the Quarto Stars, let's say Quarto Star is the greatest Gold Cup winner of recent times that everyone remembers. Compared to that, have we got a whole group of potentially champion chasers, as in champions who are winning the Gold Cup, or are we just in a sort of mediocre period and we're desperate for one to stand up and be counted? Because everyone's saying it's going to be a vintage Gold Cup, but is it only vintage because we've got a whole host of horses who are roughly the same, or have we really got a whole load of champions?
Well, first of all, I'd never say that a Gold Cup winner was mediocre. You know, they're the best they are in a particular season.
Well,
but if you just look at the ratings of some of them over the last few years, Synchronised we had on 167, 168, that sort of area there. Now you compare that with Quarto, who was in the 180s. Denman, we had him in the 180s. Imperial Commander, the same, long run. I think he was actually 180. So we had a whole host of them then. I think the standard generally dipped a little over the last few years, and now we're coming out the other side. But to say that this stage that we're in for a vintage, I think is a little bit premature. I think there's a lot of horses with the potential, but whether they're going to be up to the standard of Imperial Commander, Corto Star, Denman, that's a hell of a big leap from where they are at the moment. We've got Jackadown, we've got Road to Riches. I hope all of those will be better next year, come the Gold Cup, but they've all got to make serious progression, and not all of them will do that.
So we're more Cool Dawn, Cool Ground, Norton's Coin than we are Corto Star, Desert Orchid.
The honest answer is I don't know, but I think we have the potential to get to that. But at the moment, you couldn't say we're anywhere near there. At least these horses generally are youngsters. They've hopefully got their future in front of them. And of course, the horse we haven't debated yet is Don Cossack.
Which is a fascinating horse, and as Johnny Jones says on Twitter, you have got to start getting off the fence, because although you're not allowed to bet, you are a man who has an opinion, and having seen you at various Breeders' Cup events, you are a man who's happy to give their opinion as well. So it's about time we heard it. What's that little smile on your face? You feel slightly as though you've been found out.
Not at all.
Got very red, Phil. Let's hope Rusty's not watching. Right, anyway, Don Cossack, we're actually going to have to take a breather because we're part of the racing news programme on Sky at the moment. We're going to find out about Don Cossack, Sky Channel 415, straight after this.